Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Bob Scarborough.
And we are the FAIRtax Guys. There you go.
This is the first time this has been done in a while. For those of you watching on video, we're live from WTOB in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And we don't get to do the scrolling banner between us we do.
Like me and Ron used to do.
That's right. So here we are doing it. So there you go.
At least we got it right side up. And one time Ron and I grabbed the thing. We had the thing upside down. We said, the FAIRtax Guys, and there it was, all upside down.
Well, we have a caller on the line already.
Oh, did he go away?
I don't know.
Oh,
He's
there it
still
goes.
blinking there. So we're going to try to get our caller on the line. FAIRtax is H.R. 25 in the House of Representatives, U.S. House of Representatives. It brings us an absolutely simple, visible, and efficient way to collect taxes for the federal government without the Internal Revenue Service and without the income tax. Hello, good morning, FAIRtax Power Radio. You're on the air live.
Hello, Bob. This is John Gaver. How you doing today?
Oh, man, long distance call all the way from Panama.
I was going to say, you didn't waste a minute, did you? Are you on the same time zone that we're at down there? What time of day is it over there in Panama?
We're on Central Time Zone. It's 7 o'clock here.
Well, very good.
17.
Well, appreciate you getting up early to talk to us.
Yeah, this is great having you on. Tell us what's on your mind this morning. We'll tell people a little bit of history about your contributions to the FAIRtax cause. But tell us what's up with you this morning.
Well, I'm in the process of finishing up another video on the FAIRtax. You know, I had the one video out that was how the FAIRtax affects you, and it's received over 750 views on Parler. The Parler's playtv.parler.com, and it's received over 750 50 views. And so I decided, well, if we're getting that much attention on Parler, then I better, make another one or two here real quick. So I'm finishing one up right now. I keep changing it up because I'm trying to get it less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, people's attention span sometimes doesn't go that far.
I know 15 minutes is a long time in today's world,
Yeah, and what it is it's explaining graphically why the FAIRtax really does abolish the IRS. And a lot of times the people that want to keep the existing system or flat tax people will say, well, you can't do it. You're still going to have this huge agency. Well, and they use the term sales tax administering authority, which is defined in the FAIRtax bill as a state agency. And it's just a placeholder term for the various names of the various state agencies.
Interesting. Yeah, state departments of revenue have been collecting sales taxes for decades. I think only 5 of the 50 states don't have one. And, it's been doing that forever. The process of spotting fraudsters that are trying to game the system is developed to a pretty high degree. So evasion under the FAIRtax is going to be next to nothing because they will catch people who are collecting it but not remitting it, Yeah.
At the state levels, it's like $2-3. 2 to 3% in most states, 4% maybe. That's it. That's because most of your retailers are the big box stores, the ones that will pay them the most money, actually, not the most retailers, the most number. The ones who will collect the most FAIRtax will be the big box stores, and their point-of-sale systems make it virtually impossible for them to try to cheat on the FAIRtax. And they don't try to cheat on any sales taxes. They just roll with the flow.
No,
the only ones...
I'm saying the FAIRtax actually incentivizes the retailers to collect it. They get to keep a little portion of it. So
0.25%. The main thing is that where sales tax collection exists in the states is at the mom and pop store level, and a lot of that isn't even intentional. They do, they fill out their forms and I did something wrong. But wherever there is problems, it exists at the mom and pop store level because the big box stores can't do it. Their inventory systems, point-of-sale systems make that impossible. So you've just eliminated 90% of your possible sales tax fraud right there.
Absolutely.
We're talking with John Gaver, who is a contributor, volunteer with the FAIRtax organization, Americans for Fair Taxation. And we're on WTOB Live out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina this morning, and we'll take your calls at 336-761-1380, 336-761-1380. Bob and Bob here, and Bob Paxton comes up for Mr. Barbecue more so than he comes up for the show, but the show is the show is like a bonus.
Oh, it is. I tell you, we ought to mention also that John has written a book where he compared the income tax, the flat tax, and the fair tax using, I think, 22 different measures. And John, tell us about how that came out.
Well, it's something I started off with years ago. When I first heard about the fair tax, I thought, sales tax? That's not going to work. And I was going to write an article about how bad it was. And I started researching it. It started looking better and better and better. And I used a goals-based analysis to figure it out. And a goals-based analysis is how a lot of the decisions are made, even when you buy a car. Mm-hmm. You know, what color is it going to be? Is it going to be a 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, 8-cylinder? How many doors? Hatchback, trunk, all these kind of things. You set goals for what you want in a vehicle. Well, you do the same thing in business. And you can do the same thing to evaluate tax systems. And so that's what I did. And the more I evaluated it, the more I thought, okay, there's something to this. And it was more than a year before I was completely done with my evaluation. I tried my best to tear it down and ended up being sold on it and became a very, very early fair tax supporter. And I wrote the article that I had intended to write in a couple of days about almost a year later. And, some of my goals are, clear and simple, transparent, unintrusive, fair to all, untax the cost of living, border adjustable, increased compliance, tax cryptocurrency gains and spending. That's a new one that I had to add in. I originally had like 11 goals, and things like taxing crypto, that wasn't around back in the late 90s when I was doing all of this. Reduce compliance costs, reward savings and investment, tax the illegal economy. That's the criminal economy. So drug dealers, gun runners, prostitutes, anything like that don't report their income now will be taxed when they spend their money.
Yes. So will lawnmower stealers.
That's right.
Yeah.
Bob Paxton just made the
offshore jobs is one of the things I talked about in my previous book, The Rich Don't Pay Tax, or Do They? Repatriate lost wealth. There have been billionaires who left the United States. This was something I ran across years ago, who left the U.S., renounced their citizenship, paid the Bush exit tax, and left. And we don't get any tax from them now unless they invest some of that money back in the U.S. And, of course, most of them invest very little in the U.S. They just took their companies offshore. So there's 22 goals here. And, I set up the criteria. We look at the plans we're doing and then go through the goals and score it. And when you get through, the thing I noticed that sold me was the fair tax was the only one that met every one of my goals 100%. It just blew me away. And so it took me this many years to put it into a book form.
Don't you love it when somebody's trying to tear something down and end up being a believer?
That happened in the Bible a couple of times. Yeah.
Several times.
So anyway, we're talking with John Gaver, who is a contributor to the Americans for Fair Taxation group, the volunteer group that is pushing for radical, wonderful, revolutionary change in the way the federal government collects taxes income tax goes away, the IRS goes away, 16th Amendment's gone. And the thing about it is we get to choose when we pay the taxes to the federal government. Imagine having your paycheck come to you, and that net pay at the bottom now has more money in it than it did the day before the fair tax went into effect.
Considerably more money. And it doesn't cost your employer anymore.
Right.
That just means the government is not taking a big chunk of your money before you get it. And, of course, when the income tax goes away, withholding goes away.
Yes.
The Boss Hogg approved method of collecting taxes goes away with a fair tax. I love that.
Right. You know, we're live at WTOB.
The only way you're going to get rid of the payroll tax.
Oh, yeah, payroll tax that supports Social Security and Medicare, the most regressive taxes on the book. They apply to every dollar you earn. Doesn't matter what your income level is. Everybody pays the same rate. That is the textbook definition of regressive. And in a lot of the flat tax proposals, those payroll taxes remain intact. The fair tax gets rid of them.
And the support for those entitlements is expanded because of the increase in revenue at the
it's put on a broader, more stable tax base.
Right. In other words, 155 million taxpayers, 300 and some change. Everybody in the country buys stuff every day, week after week. International travelers, as John Gaver said a minute ago, the people that come in to our country undocumented or illegally, depending on which word you'd like to use, all of the underground economy is now at the cash register, putting tax money into the federal coffers.
The neat thing is that, like the people say, well, the billionaires don't spend money. Well, you don't know how much it costs to fuel a 737 or a Gulfstream 4 or Gulfstream 5 or something like that. When they fuel those things, they spend money. When they land them, the landing fees cost them plenty of money, and they can't. Nowadays you have billionaires who manage to find enough tax breaks, legal tax breaks, to pay zero income tax. That won't happen under the fair tax, because when they put fuel in that plane, they're right now spending thousands of dollars. They'll spend hundreds of dollars in sales tax because it'll be 23%, and their little rebate will, barely touch that. So they'll be paying right at 22.99%.
Indeed. I tell you, Donald Trump has a 757. You talk about a big fuel tank, that one's got it.
Yes, sir.
And, well, John, sure appreciate you calling us this morning.
Sir.
I know you had to get up early. Let's see if we got any other folks that want to talk to us this morning.
One thing. Let me just tell you one thing.
Sure.
I tried this last night to see what would happen. I went to Amazon and typed in the search term. Now, this is under all. I didn't even go to books. The search term, flat tax. And the fourth book that appears is the fair tax book, and the sixth book that appears is mine, the tax deception.
Yeah, I would suggest that folks read both of them.
And you can get them on Kindle, not to push you to Amazon or anything like that necessarily, but you can actually buy it online now and have it immediately available to read. And I did that a couple of times with different publications, and I didn't even have the device to read. You can now read it through an online app. Without having to have the app downloaded into your device that you'd be reading on.
If you have an iPhone, you can read my book on Apple Books, which is part of your iPhone.
Yeah, exactly. John Gaver, thanks for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Go get
Thank
that
you for what you do.
Yes, sir. Go get that extra hour of sleep, and we appreciate it. It's the FAIRtax Power Radio Show. We're live on WTOB in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Bob Paxton and Bob Scarborough here. Our telephone number is 336-761-1380 if you'd like to ask a question this morning about what we're talking about. I think John Gaver's book is quite interesting because it lays it out in common sense terms. Where you can the common guy like me can understand it.
All right.
And once you understand it, you'll demand it.
Amen.
It's WTOB live with the FAIRtax Power Radio Show. You are on the air. How are you, and who is this, and where are you calling from?
This is Laura McHugh. I'm calling from Arden, North Carolina.
Oh, mercy. You got clobbered by the hurricane.
We sure did, but we were luckier than many others. We're still working our way out of it.
Yeah, we were thinking about you big when that was coming through.
Yeah,
well, glad to hear from you this morning.
So tell us what's on your mind, Laura.
Well, I just wanted, really, you answered questions so well, and I love listening to y'all. I've listened to you often over the years, and I just want to compliment you on how well you understand the fair tax and how this show is a great way to get questions answered.
Thank you for that.
I appreciate it. Of course, it's pretty easy to understand the fair tax. It is exceedingly simple. That's the thing about it. I mean, a fifth grader could understand it.
Well, and the same thing is, and Laura, I appreciate what you said about it, but it is super simple to understand. And once you get around the fact that, and we say this all the time, we're not old enough to remember a time where there was no income tax, and there was no income tax for a period of time, several times in the United States. And now what we're talking about doing is something that I think if Washington, D.C. politicians and lobbyists could figure out a way to maintain their status quo with the fair tax, it would be enacted tomorrow.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I think it would.
Absolutely, I believe it.
I think that's the biggest hurdle to get over.
Once people understand that you can bring home your whole paycheck, you don't have to share the intimate details of your personal finances with the federal government by filling out a tax return, that you will get a tax refund every month in the form of a rebate. When people figure out that there can be a tax system that actually does that, and once they understand it, they'll demand it. And the only thing standing in the way... Yeah, the standing in the way is the politicians and the lobbyists that are making a lot of money and having a lot of influence and power over people by being able to manipulate this tax system. And it's going to take we the people to just demand that the Congress critters pass the fair tax. And
a lot of folks use the roadblocks of it's going to hurt the poor.
Nope.
Big corporations will benefit, et cetera. And it's who was it that said rocket fuel for the economy? There was a couple of people that have used that term.
I've heard that from several different people, and it's quite true.
Untaxed, the prebate untaxes everyone up to the poverty level, which is determined by the government on an annual basis. We actually print out cards, which we'll talk about in a minute, that's available for free and free shipping for anybody that is listening or your friends and you yourself can purchase and hand out. But these cards have the prebate information on it, so it shows a family of one, a family of two, individual, family of four, et cetera, what amount you would get back on an annual basis, and then you divide that by 12, and this is the money that comes to you so you can decide the payment that what you decide are essentials that you're going to spend that money on. And some people say, that's an entitlement, and it's not.
Yeah,
it's
but
your money
the
coming
net
back.
effect there is that you don't give the government a dime out of your own pocket until you have met your family's basic necessities. Right. Feed your family before you feed the government with a fair tax.
That's right. Laura, any questions that you have for us this morning? You obviously in that part of North Carolina, which is struggling to recover. Can you imagine how things would be different in that section of our state, where if the fair tax were the law of the land, it would be easier or more efficient to get supplies in? Or how would that how do you think that something like the fair tax would help in natural disasters like this?
Well, I can sort of speak from experience. I'm a financial advisor, and people have been hit really hard, and less than 1% of people that live here had flood insurance. So, of course, they're going to have to look to their savings. They're going to have to look to their investments to figure out where they can get the money to pay the tree cutters and to rebuild. And that's going to require them to pay taxes upon liquidation, either taking money out of their IRA, where they're going to get hit with taxes on all of their savings, or selling out of their regular account. They may be looking at capital gains probably after this really good market that we've been in. So they're having to make a decision based on taxes.
And with the
that's just morally wrong.
Well, with the and with the fair tax, again, we keep hammering this home. We as the people, we're out there deciding when we're going to pay our taxes and how much we're going to pay. And I always say it's great because it encourages savings. It encourages an understanding of that concept, which sometimes you get caught in that, what Laura just described with having to liquidate principal off of your 401k or savings account or whatever it is that you have, and spend it on something that may in a situation like Western North Carolina is experiencing right now. Now we can have that luxury of not having those taxes come out after withdrawing from our savings accounts. So, Laura, we hope you will do well. Have a wonderful. Now we're into the fall season. I know it's probably chilly up there. Have you had any snow up there here recently?
Oh, no. In fact, the weather's been gorgeous. It did get a little cold last week, but I will say since the day after that storm, we have had nothing but sunny, beautiful days.
And that's always good when you have a catastrophic event like we've had in Western North Carolina. To have the sunshine and a little bit of warm weather, that's not bad at all. Well, we appreciate you calling in this morning. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and keep on pushing for the fair tax up there in Western North Carolina.
Thank you.
All righty.
We're here in the WTOB studios, live on Trade Street. You can look out the window in the back, and you can see Trade Street out there, and the sunshine's coming up. It's going to be a beautiful day. Bob Paxton is here, Bob Scarborough, and it's FAIRtax Power Radio.
Yeah, something we haven't talked about quite yet. The fair tax is going to be, as we said, rocket fuel for the economy. Take that to the next step. Jobs. How many jobs are going to be created when the United States is the tax haven of the world, and all of our companies that have gone offshore come back? Those that were created offshore come here, bring all their jobs with them. And I see our phones ringing again.
Hey, we got a lot of people calling in this morning. It's the FAIRtax Power Radio Show live on WTOB out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Who is on the line, and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Chuck from Alabama.
Oh, howdy.
How you doing, Bob?
Good morning.
I'll tell you, there's probably mourning up there after yesterday's football game. I was watching it and was not happy with the result. Oh, mercy.
Football's not too good around here lately for some reason.
Oh, well.
How are you doing? What's up with you this morning?
Just checking to see if you had gotten into the corporate tax and how that affects everything that we do with fair tax.
We haven't yet, but that is an excellent point. You mentioned earlier, Bob, that people are one of the reasons or one of the things that people use to knock the fair tax is that, well, the corporations aren't going to pay any tax. That's not fair. They don't think that through, and they don't understand that corporate taxes, just like labor and materials and utilities and anything else, corporate taxes are a cost of doing business. What happens to costs of doing business? They get passed on to the consumer. So all of these politicians that are saying we need to make corporations pay their fair share are actually saying we need to make everybody out there pay more for the things they buy, and they just don't make that connection. And the fair tax, of course, does not tax any kind of income, personal or corporate, which means that the cost of doing business goes way down under the fair tax, which means the competitive pressures in a free market economy are going to drive at least wholesale prices way down. And then when the fair tax is added back into the retail level, it's going to be pretty close to a wash now. People are also trying to say fair tax is going to make everything 23% more expensive. No, it's not. It's going to reduce the cost of business dramatically. And that's going to help everybody. And
the compliance costs that we talk about all the time, in the major corporations, you have a whole floor sometimes of tax accountants and people that are working to comply with the tax code. And that costs money. Can you imagine? And just think about this if you're a small business owner. And there's no real big difference. You're trying to come up with a product or a service that people want to buy, and you're competing with other people that are doing the same thing. It happens at the corporate level. It happens every day in mom and pop business, a single operator. and your time that you spend there's a cost involved in that. Opportunity costs are part of that, and missed opportunity costs are part of that. Can you imagine not having to spend time collecting information for your business, for the federal government, for paying your taxes? And the other part of that is with regard to the employment concepts that you are required to keep up with for your employees. That whole time constraint, if you could fit that amount of time that it takes into a box, and now take that box and instead of having tax compliance written on it, you write vision, innovation, competition, figure out ways to make your product or service better. The amount of time that you spend now can be invested further into the betterment of your organization, your company.
All right, Chuck, as long as I got you on the phone here, Alabama is one of the states that is pressing forward with replacing their state income tax with a state-level consumption tax modeled on the fair tax. Where does that stand, and how's that going?
Well, we're in discussions with the lieutenant governor. He's probably going to be running for governor next time around, and so we've been in discussions with him. He's got his deputy chief of staff looking at the bill. We have a bill. It was HB4 in 2020's session, and COVID wiped us out, and it's been dogging us ever since because the federal government threw so much money at that these guys spent the last 2 or 3 years spending that money. So they haven't had time to look at this thing, but we're trying to convince him that this would be a good idea for him to run on this because that federal money is not going to last forever, and they've gotten the state in fairly good shape. But if something comes along that messes up the finances, they're going to have something to cover them, and a state fair tax would do that, just like the Fed.
Yeah, well, a state fair tax would attract a lot of business and industry to Alabama versus your surrounding states there. When people see that effect, then everybody's going to jump on that train.
Absolutely.
We already see it with Tennessee. We were one of our cohorts was bragging about how Tennessee's growing. You look at Nashville, all the celebrities are moving to Nashville because although they don't have an income tax, they have a fairly high sales tax. But I guess even without a prebate or anything like that, they're doing better than other states that have the income tax. So that's what we're looking forward to.
Thanks for being with us this morning, Chuck. We hope you have a wonderful day.
All righty. We're running out of time here real quick. Thank you, sir.
All right. It's FAIRtax Power Radio live from WTOB out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. You can watch this online. And
if you're watching this online, this actually happened on Sunday, October 20th. So
yes.
You're getting I won't use the word rehash, but you're watching something that happened earlier.
And it's a great tradition that we started a number of years ago. Bob Paxton and Ron Malero would travel to Winston-Salem, and we'd spend a nice weekend with everybody and the families and all. And, of course, we lost Ron a couple of 3 years ago now. And so Bob and I still do this. Full disclosure, Bob Paxton was born and raised in Winston-Salem.
I grew up listening to WTOB and was just ecstatic to find out what you called the first time. Because we'd have a lot of radio people call. Would you like to have your podcast on terrestrial radio? Yeah, we'd love it. They weren't looking to support the fair tax. They were just looking to sell time. And that's kind of what we thought of when your call first came in. And we realized that when we realized that you were a fair tax supporter and wanted to support the fair tax, not just sell us time. And since we're all volunteers, we have no budget for that.
Right.
And we're on several stations around here now, and we're trying to get more.
That's right. So we do appreciate everybody listening today. We're going to have to wrap up because we're up against the clock, as they say in live radio.
Indeed.
But it's always good to see you, and we'll let you do the official closing.
All right. Well, we will see you at Mr. Barbecue tomorrow. But again, as we always say, Thank you for sharing the videos, liking the videos, telling your friends and family about it. But until we meet again next time here on FAIRtax Power Radio, I'm Bob Paxton.
I'm Bob Scarborough.
And we are the FAIRtax Guys, reminding you the fair tax is the only truly fair tax and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
So tell me how it works.
You know, it's probably changed since the last time I saw it, but the short answer would be, you want to take this one?
Oh, sure. Okay. Imagine bringing home everything you make. You don't get taxed for saving or accumulating wealth, and your boss doesn't get taxed more even if he pays you more.
Wow, now see, that's amazing.
So the end result of all that is the cost of producing products and running a business goes down, so things cost less. And on top of all that, imagine every criminal, non-citizen, and under-the-table worker also paying taxes.
That's amazing.
That's the fair tax.